All right. Welcome, my friend. It is Wednesday night yet again. It is time, that's right, for another episode of the Red Delta Project podcast, where we take a fundamental approach to fitness to give you more power, freedom, and control over your health and fitness. As always, I'm Matt Schifferly, founder of the Red Delta Project and author of the books that sponsor these episodes: Grind Style Calisthenics, Overcoming Isometrics, Fitness Independence, and so on. There's a full list of the available titles in both paperback and Kindle down below in the description, as well as links to my favorite equipment company, Nosk Suspension Equipment, a very affordable home gym equipment that takes very little space, but lots of versatility. Find all of that sort of links down below in the description. So today's topic that we're diving into, that I alluded to last week a little bit, is why I'm giving up the minimalist approach to fitness. This is something that's kind of a bit of a new chapter here in Red Delta Project, although it's been in development for a very long time. It's just all the pieces are coming together, sort of like what happened to the Grind Style Calisthenics program. Everything came together, even though it was in the development for many, many years. And the reason why this shift is happening is because I'm starting to really get fast-tracked with a lot of the lessons that I'm learning by writing my next book that's coming out, micro workouts. Now, I always learn a lot whenever I'm making content. It's really true what they say: the teacher is the best student. So I'm writing this book, been writing for about 6 months now. And at first, when I started to write the book, I took a minimalist approach to working out. Like, how do we get a good workout? Less time, less equipment, less energy, less. And maybe I'm wrong on this. I'm sure people will let me know in the comments section. But for me, a minimalist approach has always been trying to get by with as little as possible, spending as little money, as little time, little, less. That's always been my attitude on what a minimalist approach always has been. And it's great in many ways, because who doesn't like getting in shape for less time and money and all that? But there's always been something about it that's really kind of been out of alignment for me, because while it can be very beneficial, it also can be detrimental and very stressful. And so when I was writing this book on micro workouts and started to say, okay, how do I make a workout with as little time as possible? Less. I found that the more I went less to a certain degree, the worse off it was. The more I tried to minimize the approach to working out, the worse it was. It wasn't any better after a certain amount of reduction. So instead of trying to do with less, I started to become a little bit more of like, well, how do we just make working out so effective that it doesn't need to be a lot to begin with? It doesn't require a lot of equipment. It doesn't require a lot of time, not because we're trying to reduce, just because it's not necessary. And that's kind of been my personal approach to my workouts and stuff over the past couple of years now. People look at my workouts and they look at what I'm doing and they're like, this is so little. You don't do very much. You don't do very much in your diet. You don't do much in your workouts. Everything you do is so minimalist. But the fact of the matter is, I never approached things with such an efficient way with the intent of saving time and money and energy. That was never the goal. It just was the outcome of going along with the path of what Red Delta Project is fundamentally based on. Because when I started RDP over 10 years ago, I started to basically go with the question, which was, everybody says you got to do this and do that, and there's so much debate, and I felt like saying, okay, everybody shut up. Let me figure out what are the most important things in getting in shape. Like, if you want to lose weight, what's the most important thing? Like, is carbs the most important thing? Fat, calories, cardio, heart rate, and so on. And what's, if you want to build muscle, if you want to have a healthy diet, if you want to do functional training, like, what's the most important thing? So I've been digging into this rabbit hole for over 10 years now, and I keep getting deeper and deeper into the bedrock of what is actually the most important. And as a result of that, not only am I getting into the rock bottom, as I say, fundamental approaches, fundamental is the base of Red Delta Project, the more I realized that I didn't need all the other stuff, the less I needed. And because it's like, oh, I don't need to do cardio. Oh, I don't need that exercise bike. Oh, I don't need this. I don't need, well, then to hell with it. Like, if I don't need it and it's not important for what, and I don't enjoy it, then to hell with it. Because really, at the end of the day, when it comes to your diet and exercise plans, there's only two good reasons to adopt those habits. Either A, you have to do them for your goal, and 90% of the time you don't. And B, you want to do it that way. Okay, those are the only two reasons. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. There is absolutely no good reason to do whatever it is, whether it's fasting or a particular diet or lift their deadlifts or whatever. You don't have to do it. I know that's a little counter to a lot of things out there because you turn to everybody in experts and it's like, well, what's the best way to? It's like you talk to somebody who's a big fan of fasting, and you get this idea, this sense that you have to be fasting. You have to do intermittent fasting, or you have to be paleo, or you have to be vegan, or you have to do free weights if you want to build muscle, or you have to do HIIT train or whatever. And all of this stuff is completely optional. Very rarely is it absolutely necessary. And that's one of the reasons why I say that RDP gives you more power, control, and freedom, because a lot of times we feel like we're getting forced into these dogmatic pigeonholes of I have to do this way. And it's like, no, you don't. And we're doing things we don't want to do because we think we have to, and you don't. So anyway, getting back to this minimalist approach, what I started to realize is there is a huge fundamental flaw in what I perceive as the minimalist approach, which is less, 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 less. How can you set up a gym with less money, less space, less equipment, less exercise, less, 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 less? And the thing is, when it comes to fitness, one of the fundamental things we have to understand is that there is a point at which we get this optimal amount of something. How much you're working out, how many calories, how many carbs, and stuff like that. Now, too much in excess creates stress. It creates stress on your lifestyle, stress on your mind, stress on your body. So oftentimes when we are running into issues of excessive consumption, excessive exercise, excessive cardio, whatever, and we take an approach where we reduce it, we're going to relieve a lot of that stress and it's going to feel great. We're going to get much better results. But that's where we can fall into that minimalist trap because we think, oh, I'm reducing my calories, I'm reducing my carbs, I'm reducing my sugar, I'm reducing my cardio, I'm doing less, whatever it is, we're getting out of an excessive situation. So we feel better and we're getting better results. But we can still continue too far because excessive nature, excessive consumption and stuff creates stress, but so does deprivation. If we take that reduction too far, we now create stress of a different sort. So this mindset of less, 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 less is always better. Less is always better. Less carbs, less sugar, less is always better. If you felt better and got better results by reduction, less is always better. And on the flip side, sometimes you get stuck in the trap of more is always better. More sets, more reps, more weight, more exercise, more. But it's so at those two extremes, sorry, I'm in camera here, two extremes where we're going to find stress. There's stress in deprivation and there's stress in excess. And a mindset that says less is always more or more is always more is going to run you a higher risk of going in either direction. So here's the new approach. The fundamental principles of fitness never demand that more is always better or less is always better, right? Sometimes saving money isn't a best idea. Doing something cheaper or with less time isn't always in your best interest. Sometimes what is in your best interest is to pony up and pay the extra cost. Let me give you a little story to really illustrate this. For years, I wanted to buy a freestanding pull-up unit for home calisthenics workouts. And gosh, it's got to be about 4 or 5 years by now. I went to the Dragon Door Health and Strength Conference. To my knowledge, it's the only one they ever had. And at that conference, they had a prototype for their now hard to get, but the bodyweight master gym that was coming out. And then when I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. I have to have one. I really, really want one. But when it came out, my minimalist mindset was like, okay, yeah, but how do I find something that's going to be cheaper? How do I find something that's going to be less space, take up as much space in my room? How do I find something that's less? And as a result, over the next several years, I kept buying stuff on Amazon that I thought would be good enough that was half the price and half the space and half of whatever. And every single time I was disappointed. I was disappointed in the build quality. I was disappointed in what it could do, the ergonomics, the setup, the adjustments. Basically, it was all crap. I even had some of it in some of my videos, and people would write to me and say, "That's a neat piece of equipment. What is that?" And I'd be like, "I'm not telling you what this is because it's a piece of junk. It's made out of tin, and all the ergonomics are horrible on it. I mean, the dip handles are down at a 30-degree angle. Like, whoever designed this should be ashamed of themselves, right?" And so after buying and then getting rid of and buying and kept doing this, my partner I was living with at the time was like, "Would you keep buying all this crap? And you're spending all this money. Like, what do you really want?" I'm like, "I want a bodyweight master. That's what I really want." She's like, "Then buy a damn bodyweight master." So finally I was like, "All right, fine." And I bought it, and I haven't been on Amazon looking for pull-up bars ever since, because it's exactly what I wanted. It was exactly what needed to happen. It was exactly what I should have bought in the first place. But this idea of I have to do this somehow cheaper, I have to do this somehow with less space and less, basically took me into a deprived state where I was depriving myself of what I really should have been buying in the first place. I would have saved money if I bought it outright to begin with. So it's just a little example of how the minimalist mindset kind of screwed me over the years. So when we take a fundamental approach to fitness, our goal is never to do more. Our goal is to never do less. Our goal is to do enough and to know what that is. And you might say, "Well, okay, well, how do I know what the hell that is?" Well, therein lies the secret to a lot of the methods that we use here at Red Delta Project. Because I'm not going to give you a number of you have to always try to eat more or eat less, or less carbs is always better, or less sugar is always better, or more sets and more. Because when you don't know the objective of your habits, you're always going to fall into maybe I need to do more or maybe I do less. It's just like trying to hit a target, but you don't see the target. It's like shooting blind. Like, where am I going? And people are like, just keep aiming up, and you're shooting up in the sky. Am I hitting it yet? Right? Because most of the time in fitness, it's not about more or less or right or wrong. It's about, are you hitting your targets? And the first step of that is, do you even know what the target is to begin with? And that's where a lot of people are flying blind in their fitness. And they just err on the side of more is always better or less is always better, because they don't know where that happy point is, where they've had enough, where they're hitting that nail right on the head. Because when you understand that, it's exactly like that. It's like driving a nail into wood, right? If you're like, okay, I need to get these nails into the wood, and you're just randomly swinging your hammer around, and every once in a blue moon, you manage to strike a nail and drive it in a little bit. And after like several days of random waving your hammer around, you look and it's like, oh, the nail's halfway in the wood. Oh man, I'm making progress. This is great. I got to keep working at it. Gotta spend hours a day swinging this hammer around, right? Versus if you're like, hit the damn nail. That head of the hammer hits the nail. Boom, 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 done. Right? Now, you didn't go into that saying, I want to drive this nail in as quickly as possible. You just said, this is the objective. I'm going to do what it takes to accomplish the objective of driving this nail into the wood. And because you know what that objective is, you naturally undo or get rid of a lot of the wasted time and money and effort and energy and stuff that's just bloating out your approaches, that is totally unnecessary and increasing the cost to your approaches, because you don't know the direction you're going. You don't know what you're trying to actually do. There's no focus. That's why the approaches are, what kind of diet should you have? You should be eating to satisfy your 4 primal appetites, because the better you can satisfy your 4 primal appetites, as I explained in Healthy Eating Chapter and Fitness Independence, the healthier your diet will be without excessive calories, without excessive processed foods, without excessive restriction, without excessive consumption, without excessive grocery bills. So you get rid of all of the pain of an excessive diet, but you also get rid of all of the stress of a restrictive diet. You hit the nail right on the head and you get exactly what you need. And more importantly, you can, once you know what you need, you can infinitely customize your habits to get exactly what you need every single time. So sometimes you're going to need to eat more. Sometimes you're going to need to do more sets. Sometimes you're going to need to do less sets. Sometimes you're going to need 10 reps. Sometimes you're going to need 8, right? It's always going to change. Giving you a cookie cutter number is a blind shot in the dark for me. I wouldn't tell you, oh, if you want to hit that nail in the wood, you have to hit it exactly 9 times. Don't you dare hit it 10, because that's going to be bad. And don't you dare hit it 7, because that's not going to be enough, right? I don't know. It depends on how long the nail is, depends on the wood, depends on the hammer, depends on how hard you're striking it. It depends on 100 things. So when I give you instructions of drive the nail into the wood, that means you're now free to use whatever number of strikes, whatever technique you want, whatever hand position you want. You can adjust all of those variables a million different ways so you can get the job done the best way for you, and you can be flexible so you maintain total control. So you control your diet, you control your workout, you're in control. You're not following some cookie cutter random program. Bill is based on somebody's guesswork and estimations. And that's what a fundamentalist approach does. Not a minimalist approach, because less isn't always more. Not a more is better approach, right? A maximum or an optimum approach, right? Because that's not always good too, because both deprivation and excess are going to be stressful and they're going to screw you over. But when you know what that objective is, now you can hit it right on the head every single time and be far more successful. And it's going to look like a minimalist approach to a lot of people because you're doing far less, but it's not because you're trying to do less. It's just because you don't need to spend an hour and a half doing something that takes 15 minutes, right? There's that old saying that's out there on the internet. I don't quit when I'm tired. I quit when I'm done. And usually it's kind of in reference to the idea of you keep going even if you're tired. Like if your objective is to run a marathon at mile 16, you're tired, but you don't stop because you're tired. You stop when you get 26.2 miles because that's your goal to run a marathon. So it applies to that, but it also applies to the other side of I know what my objective is in this workout and I'm going to stop once I've reached the objective. I'm not going to stop just because I'm exhausted. And when you get better at accomplishing that objective, you're going to find that it doesn't take nearly as much energy and effort and time and money and all these other things as it originally took you because you just get better at doing it, right? I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, it would take me forever to hammer a nail into wood because I wasn't good at it and it glance off and I'm bending nails and I'm not hitting it very hard. And I was always looking up to my dad who could just bang, 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 done, right? So I got better at hitting nails. So it just took me less, just not because I tried to be minimalism about driving nails into wood. It's just because I got better at doing it. It's the same thing with fitness. The better you get at it, the easier it becomes because you know your objective and it takes less resources to accomplish it every single time. Now, I know that's a little bit vague because you're like, great, so what are these objectives and everything? And that's going to be the topic of, well, not just micro workouts, but the book afterwards. I covered this throughout my entire thing. I did a whole video on the objectives of every phase of grind style calisthenics. You can look for that in the YouTube channel because once you know what the objective is, you'll naturally adjust the number of sets and reps and everything in order to accomplish the objective. But if I say do 4 sets, how the hell do I know if 4 sets is right? That could be too much. You could accomplish it in 2 sets and now you're wasting energy doing 2 sets that does nothing for you. Or I could say do 4 sets, and after 4 sets, you're still not quite there. You need 1 more to get the job done, right? But only you're going to know that because only you know where you are relative to that objective. So I'll be talking more about this in future videos and stuff like this, the objectives of healthy diet, objectives of weight loss, objectives of various things. But my new book coming out soon, the release date I have planned is December 19th, will be all about what is the actual objective of your workout. And then you can adjust it however the hell you want to accomplish those objectives every single time. So you're not doing this random guesswork and getting 1 good workout out of every 10. You get 9.5 out of every 10. All right, done with that. Let me know if you have questions and stuff. Everybody's on today. Thank you so much. Let's get to some questions. And as always, if you put the hey Matt in front, I know you're talking to me and not to each other just because I know you like to converse. Everybody in the RDP community is so supportive of everybody else. It's always heartwarming to see. Thank you so much. Very, very good. Al Painter, first up, first question. Hey Matt, today was supposed to be an off day. I felt great, so I did a little diagonal push-pull with bands. Very good. Tomorrow is an off too. If I feel good, should I go off schedule and get after it? Well, Al, as you know, me, I don't even keep a schedule anymore with my workouts. Everything is very adaptive. Some people might say intuitive training, freestyle. I call it adaptive training, because if my circumstances warrant a change, I bloody well make the change, right? I don't walk out when it's 90 degrees out with a jacket and be like, oh man, I'm hot, but it's December. I should be wearing a jacket because it's December. No, I'm like, dude, I'm hot. I'm going to take off my jacket. Same thing in your workout. You want to crush it tomorrow? Hit it, my friend. Get it done. Get that workout taken care of. If you are ready to rock and roll, then nail it. Go for it. If you want to do more, do more. If you want to step it up and add some weight or add some reps or go to a heavier band, go for it. It's going to be better in the long run. But don't forget, you can also slow down at the same case. Like the past few weeks, my workouts have been like that because I've been fighting just general fatigue. I get this chronic fatigue from time to time, and it's tough for me to just get out of bed in the morning. So literally my workout today was, I think, 3 sets of 5 suspension push-ups. That was my workout today. That's about all I can manage right now. But I'm not going to force myself to be like, I said I have to do 100 push-ups every day. I'm going to force myself to do 100 push-ups. No, my body and mind is not up for it. So I'm not going to do it. I'm going to change it up, let my body heal. And then when I feel good and I want to crank out 100 push-ups or something, by golly, I'm going to do it. Mike G. Hey, Matt, appreciate you making these fitness mistakes. Yes, of course, because you only come to these realizations through the actions you took and the iterations made thereafter. Absolutely, man. As I've said before, like, knowledge is great. Information is great. We got a whole internet full of information. But as we're now coming to terms with, all the information in the world doesn't really give you the solutions that you need. Right? I can give you my ideas. I can give you my opinions. I can give you places to start with. But ultimately, I don't know what you need. I don't know what you should be doing. You're going to have to figure that out for yourself through experience. Experience is what's gold. Experience is far more important than any amount of knowledge. Knowledge is just resources, but experience is really what's important. And you see a lot of that coming to head with like tech companies and even colleges now and stuff. They're like, okay, yeah, you got straight A's. Wonderful. What kind of experience do you have in life, though? Someone's like, oh, I took this job on a ship and we sailed around the world and I led 30 people on this ship to solve these problems. Oh, okay, good. So you're probably good for management material, even though you didn't get a BA from Yale or something. You just managed an entire ship in the middle of the Pacific, in the middle of a hurricane. That says a lot about you. Experience is very important. It's very underrated. So experience is very valuable. Go out, get your experience. Henry Reed, hey Matt, any tips for working out around an advanced time-restricted feeding schedule, like 1 meal a day? Currently, I do fasted calisthenics followed by 30 minutes moderate biking, then 1 huge meal. Well, first off, Henry, I would say, do you need 1 meal like it's 1 sit-down meal, or can you kind of space that out a little bit over time? Right? Is that over like an hour or something like that? Because feeding and eating is largely also just a matter of time. Like, it's very hard to consume a lot of calories in a very short period of time. I know you could be like, I ate 3 Big Macs in 5 minutes or whatever. It's like, okay, great, yeah. But then you're looking at very calorie dense food, maybe not the healthiest for you, maybe not the most nutrient dense food. I've known a number of folks who do the 1 meal a day thing, and they find in order to get enough calories, they oftentimes will rely on a lot of like very processed, a lot of sugary, like sodas and stuff like that, just because they're like, I need the calories, and they're making like 5 protein shakes and stuff, and it's a little bit harsh. So what I would do if I had to do it in just 1 meal, I would make a lot of fat-based meals, a lot of oil, olive oil, a lot of butter, that sort of thing. Make sure you get calories. Protein is next. And then get your starchy carbs, like rices are pretty good and stuff. Really fortify it and have plenty of vegetables as well. Now, eating 1 big meal can be very hard to just eat. Like if you set me down to 3,000 calories, I'd be like, oh boy, this is gonna hurt. It's like one of those man versus food challenges kind of thing. So that's gonna be a bit more challenging to consume. So the fat, the protein and stuff is going to slow down a little bit. So I would go with more of the, like I said, something with some oil or fat based, get some good protein, and fortify with the carbs and veggies just as much as you can from then on out. And then I would just simply ask to evaluate, like, well, why one meal? Why not two? Like splitting it up between the two can be a lot less stressful on the system if you're having trouble getting things in. All right, next coming up is Michael. Hey, Matt, what is your thoughts on what are the more shoulder-friendly movements? Best shoulder-friendly movements I like are just straight horizontal rows and presses, but a lot of shoulder-friendly movements come down to just shoulder mobility and stability. Give yourself stuff where your shoulders can move in space, so retraction and protraction, and some rotation with the hands. So things like gymnastics rings, suspension, band work, if you're using free weights, dumbbells, kettlebells, they've got those angle 90 handles, you know, that allow rotation and stuff. So if you're doing like deadlifts on a barbell, you strap those on the barbell. Things that allow rotation tend to allow the force to go around the joint of the shoulder rather than into it like a punch. So I would say add rotation to whatever movements you want, but if you can get some rotation, that's probably going to be a lot better. Andre, hey, Matt, what's your opinion on limited workouts for time, like HIIT workouts, like CrossFit does, as many rounds as possible, let's say 20 minutes more conditioning, or as good for muscle growth? Yeah, it could be very good for both. Racing the clock can be a fun challenge to do. It's kind of like my 3-minute test. This is one of the micro workout strategies that I have in my upcoming book, where you basically set the clock and you're like, go for it. I like the way that it kind of just keeps you honest from a time perspective, because it's very easy for workouts to just bloat up time. It's the old adage that work expands to fill time. If you have a report to do in 3 weeks, it'll take you 3 weeks. If you have it to do in an hour, it'll take you an hour. Same thing with workouts. It's a good idea to kind of be like, my workout is a hard stop at this time or within this amount of period, and it keeps you focused. Now, the detriment to that approach, though, can be when people are racing the clock, they become very efficient at the movements and they start half repping, they start using easier movements, especially in calisthenics. This is a big problem because you add resistance to more difficult exercises. So that's why oftentimes when you see like CrossFitters doing AMRAP workouts and stuff, they've got like, quote, shitty form. It's not bad form. It's because they're doing a sport. They're trying to be an athlete, and athletes are efficient. But when you're trying to actually get better or to condition your body, you want to go exactly the opposite. So I always say strength and conditioning and sport on two opposite ends of the spectrum. You don't use sports to get in shape. You use sports to get good at the sports, and you use conditioning to get in shape. So you got to be mindful of that. So I wouldn't necessarily race the clock, as just use it as a bit of a pressure to say this is how much time you have. So you're less likely to just scroll mindlessly through your phone for 5 minutes, knowing that you've got 20 minutes to get this circuit done, right? So I wouldn't race it so much to say how much you can get, as more of just put an emphasis on the quality of your techniques and make sure that it's challenging you. And then using the clock is just a way to keep the pressure on. Great. Hey, Matt, what is the best way to train on very little sleep? Easy, get more sleep. For the most part, it's one of those things of, again, this is kind of a minimalist approach where people are like, oh, I have very little to work with, so how do I maximize it? And sometimes you just can't. No, you're not going to. You're not going to get your best results when you have less sleep, when you have little sleep. It's just, it's like a race car driving into the pit crew going, I lost a wheel. How do we still win the race? Answer, you don't. You're going to be screwed. Now, sometimes, obviously, you come to the table and you're like, I'm just running on fumes today. I didn't get a good night's sleep. Yeah, that happens. So it's just the same thing with adaptive training. Use whatever you've got. You don't have much energy, you're not going to do very much. Okay, you're going to do much less volume. Intensity may still be okay. Usually when you're coming into it with less sleep, you have a lower ceiling as far as endurance. So when the pain starts hitting, you're much more likely to be like, okay, that's good, I'm done. Versus like, keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing. So I would say try to keep the intensity relatively the same. So same weight, same progressive technique, same, heaviness, but drastically reduce the volume, less sets, less reps, less of whatever, because you're already exhausted. You're already burned out. You're already tired. There's no sense in contributing to that more in your workout. You're basically there to just kind of work on your technique, work on the exercises, improve it in some way, therefore, and hold your ground. But you're not going to get a whole lot of the volume, as it were. Maxilla, next question. Hey, Matt, do you think you need to work calves and forearms? Or do you think they get hit enough with rows, pull-ups, squats, and lunges? They do get hit enough with that. They certainly do. Calves, I will say, though, a lot of people have trouble engaging their calves, period. And as a result, their calves aren't really that engaged during squats and lunges. If it's not that engaged during squats and lunges, it's basically DOA in the water. So that's when some people are like, I need extra calf work, need extra calf work. To be perfectly honest, like for me, I barely do any extra calf work these days because I'm engaging my calves so much more with the lunges and the squats and stuff. I'm clawing the ground with my toes. It's not hard to get extra doing things like towel rows and stuff. I'm a big fan of incorporating as much value into your exercises as possible. So doing towel rows or thick grip rows, pull-ups, that sort of thing is good for your grip as you get more advanced in calisthenics and you put more weight onto one arm. That forearm's naturally going to work a lot harder as well. Same with the calves. Naturally, a lot of times when I give people more advanced single leg calisthenics works like shrimp squats, pistol squats, are like, oh, wow, I feel that in my calf. So you don't have to do it. You can if you like, though, but I would recommend use it as a supplemental form and a supplemental exercise. It's like, okay, a couple quick sets, 30 seconds to a minute or so, boom, done. Okay. One of the big mistakes that people often make is they make the small things the main things in their workouts, where they'll do like 2 sets of squats and then spend like an hour on their calves. It's like, no, your priorities are all backwards here. Put your calves just a little finisher, like in grind style calisthenics, you would put your calf work in the finisher phase. So if I were you, I would put it in finisher phase along with like maybe some sissy squats or something. And just a couple of hard sets, just push them to very high level fatigue, push them as hard as you possibly can and be done with it. You don't need a whole lot for that sort of thing, for sure, especially if it's getting worked sufficiently in the big compound movements. Mike G in the house. Good to see you, Mike. I'm trying to improve my pull-up proficiency by practicing scapular pull-ups. Good idea. Having trouble feeling my right side. Suggestions for getting those muscles to fire. Lots, lower traps, and so on. Well, I would go with a single arm isometric row. This is one of my favorite isometrics that I do always for all my pull workouts as part of the tension phase. Is I'll take a yoga strap or my iso loop, wrap it around my feet, and then pull on a towel or a handle on one side. And that allows me to light up all the muscles, my lats, my traps, delts, biceps, grip, all that stuff on one side. And then I'll switch to the other side. And I'll switch to the other side. So I'm like, okay, here's how it feels on the right side. Here's how it feels on the left side. Is there a difference? Lower traps not quite engaged. Okay, and then I can just kind of get things and figure out how to engage it. That's what I would do if I were you. Do that before your scapular pull-ups or even superset with your scapular pull-ups and see if, because it's not going to be like an immediate difference, but eventually you're just going to kind of get something down, and usually scap's not set quite right. And then it'll light up and you're like, oh, there it is. And because you're doing the isometric, you're teaching your brain how to engage them much more effectively. That'll carry over to the scapular pull-ups. That'll carry over to your pull-ups and rows and make them a hell of a lot stronger. So isometric, definitely where you want to go with that. Again, check out my book, Overcoming Isometrics, for ideas on that. And also, everybody, this is new news. I haven't really made this public yet, but the iso loop device that you may have seen me use and stuff, it is actually available as a full bona fide product now over at WorldFit. So if you go to WorldFit, IsoLoop, it is actually available and for sale over there. It's still a little in the works. Like, we're making up some videos and instruction pamphlets and stuff like that to go with it. But if you just wanted to quickly grab one or something like that, it is actually available. I think it's like $14.95 or something. It's going for a song. I don't know how they're making it for that, because I can't even make one myself for that cheap. Anyway, Max covers, how's it going? Next question. Hey, Matt, can you build muscle on gym rings alone with a weighted vest after you progress? Of course, yeah, you can build muscle with anything. Remember, there's no requirement of exercise or programming variables to build muscle. The only thing you have to do to build muscle is make the muscle work progressively harder over time. So how much tension is in the muscle and how long can it hold the tension for? Those are the only variables. This is the time under tension thing you often hear about. And time under tension refers to the amount of tension and the amount of time. Those are the only two things you got to worry about when it comes to your muscle building workouts. Everything else is whatever. Like, do whatever exercises you want, use whatever equipment you want, use whatever programming you want, use progressive push-ups, use weighted push-ups, use weight machines, use whatever you want. As long as you're making those muscles work progressively harder over time, well, from a training standpoint, you've got that base covered. Now, when it comes to building muscle, there's a hell of a lot more to it than working out. Working out is actually a very small piece of your ability to build muscle. The analogy I give everybody is building a bigger muscle is like building a big bonfire. And the only thing your workout is the match. That's it. It's the time under tension is like saying all you need is that spark. All you need is a little flame. I don't care if it's a Zippo or a Bic or a wood match or a carbon, whatever. You just need a little flame. And you need that in order to build that bonfire. But your actual muscle building potential is everything else. How big is the pile? What's the starter? What's the kindling? How is it arranged? All of that stuff is the bulk of your muscle building potential. Your workout has very little to do with your muscle building potential. As long as it's progressive resistance, so you can progressively work your muscle over time, you're set. You're good. Check that box off. You got it covered. That's as good as you're going to get as far as your workouts go. Now it's how's your sleep? How's your lifestyle? How's your diet? How's your stress levels? How is your ability to recover? How is your just general ability to make sure you can push your muscles hard without stressing out the other systems of your body, like you're killing your joints, killing your nervous system, and all these other sorts of things. That stuff is actually the bulk of what's important for building muscle and why most people just never really get very far with it. And of course, there's always genetics. And genetics is basically the blanket term for all of the things that pertain to your physical potential that we can't really control, which is a lot of it. All right, great questions here, everybody. Thanks so much for coming on. We got a big crew in tonight. Fantastic. I hope everybody's staying healthy and safe out there in the RDP community. Let's get to the next question. Zabe, I love your simplistic approach to training. Thank you very much. Do you have a similar concept mindset for food? Of course I do. I have just come off another big binge and I feel sick again. I don't blame you. I used to binge like crazy. It makes me feel like crap. It's a bad pattern undoing my hard gym work. Well, I would say your diet's not necessarily undoing your hard gym work for a number of reasons, because your diet and your workout have two very different jobs in your fitness career, right? If you're doing, say, for example, pull-ups and you're building strength in your back and your biceps and stuff like that, your diet has almost nothing to do with your pull-ups whatsoever. When you did those pull-ups, you created that little spark that said, hey, I need to create the stimulus to change. That stimulus is still there. Nothing you did in that binge is counteracting the stimulus to adapt and change your muscles that you did in the gym. So that's still good. That's still fine. You didn't do any damage in that front whatsoever, right? But binging and stuff is a big problem because, again, of the mindset of I've got to do more or I've got to do less. And this is where that pendulum comes from that I was talking about earlier. You have stress from excessive and you have stress from deprivation. And when we get stuck on binges and stuff, it's because we keep going back and forth. And we're like, oh, I feel like crap. I ate too much. Then we deprive. And we go past this middle point where you're like, I feel better. I feel better. I feel better. I feel better. Less, less, less. And then you start going into depravity. And you're like, now I've got a different kind of stress. Different kind of stress on the mind and body and stuff. This sucks. This sucks. You start eating more. You eating more. You're feeling better. And then you pass that midpoint again. And oh, now I feel like crap again. And you just keep swinging back and forth. And the objective is here. And we accomplish this not by saying don't eat so much or make sure you eat enough. It's make sure you have a good objective with your diet. And the sad reality is most people out there have no idea what they're trying to do with a healthy diet. They're just told, eat this, don't eat that, don't eat this, so much this, don't eat, make sure you get enough of that. These are not instructions for a healthy diet. A healthy diet is based on how well can you satisfy your appetites, as I discuss in my healthy eating playlist here on the RDP channel, my first book, Fitness Independence. But when we have the objective to satisfy your 4 primal appetites, now you actually have a target you're trying to hit with every single meal and bite you take. And as long as you're trying to hit that target, you're not going to way overshoot by overeating, and you're not going to way undershoot by undereating either, because neither of those are going to help you. You know exactly what you're trying to accomplish. You're trying to satisfy your primal appetite for hunger. So you satisfy your hunger. You're not full. You're not hungry. You're just right. You're satisfied. Your need for nutritional support. So make sure your food and your meals have as much nutritional content as you can. Your desire for palatability, the enjoyment of food. So make sure you enjoy your food. You're not just eating, glop and protein shakes and choking down stuff you don't like to eat. And your need to just sustain your energy level. Because right now, like you noticed, I binged. I feel like crap. Yeah, your energy level is probably in the toilet because you ate too much. So now you take that to bank and like, okay, eating too much, energy level real low, not so much. How much do I need to eat in order to feel good afterwards? Like I've done lunch. After like 20 minutes or so, I'm like, I feel like I really can work out. My energy level's nice and high. That's what you're looking for from that sort of idea. Another one from Al Painter. Al, hey Matt, you're on a desert island and you've only got one piece of equipment and one book. What are you reading and what's the equipment for the workout? Well, my book would be How to Get It Off a Desert Island in 4 Easy Steps. Hey, you can find anything on Amazon, and my equipment would be a boat, but let's get more to I know what you're talking about here. The equipment, suspension straps, simple and easy. NOSC suspension straps, no contest right there. Basically a portable weight machine. I can hook up to any sort of tree. I can hook it up to a boulder and drag that around, get some drag work. I can also use that potentially maybe to hunt with, to catch fish with and stuff. A suspension trainer could be very versatile on a desert island. So that's definitely what I would go with. NOSC suspension trainer, twin trainer specifically. And what are you reading? What am I reading for a book? Probably something I haven't read yet. Because if I've read it already, it's probably going to not bring less value for me every single time. But probably something to keep my mind engaged, something really deep, like some sort of a philosophical book, something by Descartes or Lao Tzu or something along that nature, because I'm probably going to go crazy on that desert island. I mean, more so than normal, obviously, but something that keeps my mind sharp so I can keep thinking and have a good perspective on what I'm doing there on the island, rather than just going absolutely crazy and end up, because I got to train my mind as well as my body. And for me, I've always enjoyed philosophy books, things that challenge my perspective on things. That way I can train my body, I can train my mind, and that way I can probably stay in the best shape possible and hope to hell someone else comes to my rescue. Or, there's a cruise that runs aground of, Swedish bikini models or something. And it's like, well, I guess we're all stranded here. Too bad, kind of thing. All right, next question. How would you personally go about combining kettlebell work with calisthenics in a program? How would you compare/contrast swings and bridges? You're right on point here, Swim Pansy. You're right on point, because most kettlebell work is extension chain work. So I just switched the two around. And this is how I combine any sort of training modalities, because my chain training theory that I talked about in the episode last week is when you have a chain training approach, you can mix and match and switch and swap modalities all you like. Kettlebell with calisthenics, with free weights, with bands, with Bowflex, with logs, whatever you like. Because when you take things on a more fundamental movement approach, like chain training, the methods you use are more just extrinsic variables of like, I don't know, just do whatever the hell you want. Just do whatever you have on hand. You like kettlebells? Great, use kettlebells. You don't like kettlebells? Okay, don't worry about it, kind of thing. So most kettlebell work is extension chain work. So you just switch and swap, like one day bridging, next day swings, or you could superset them both back to back, because they basically do roughly the same thing from a muscular foundation standpoint. And then you got your press, it's pushing, and your Turkish get up is kind of just an overall good for stability and stuff. That's good for building up a lot of overall body coordination and stuff. All right, let's see what other kind of questions I'm kind of reading through here. Some of them don't have the hey Matt on it. I know a lot of people don't know that, but if you put hey Matt in your subject line, then I know to address it right off the bat. Let's get into Julian Harris asks, do you think humans need to train while standing to gain more functional strength? I think it's a very good thing. For sure, this is often referred to as ground-based strength training. A lot of times when people have a training approach that is a lot of sitting and lying down, they have a lot missing from their total body strength. Things don't knit together very well, and their ability to stabilize, particularly in the extension chain or their posterior chain, is usually fairly weak as well. So I think it's definitely good. I'm not saying you have to only do it standing, but I definitely think ground-based is the way to go. That's one of the reasons I credit with the kettlebell movement getting so big. Was like in the early 2000s, kettlebell seems to just boom, exploded. And they were the best thing since sliced bread. People were like, oh my gosh, I feel so amazing and strong with kettlebell work. Well, a big reason for that is because kettlebells don't go on racks. There's no squat rack for kettlebells. There's no bench press rack for kettlebells. At the time, kettlebells themselves didn't even go on a rack. Like I know now you can buy kettlebell racks like dumbbell racks, but now or back then it's like the kettlebell's on the floor. You address the kettlebell on the floor, you pick it up, you do whatever it is from some sort of usually a standing position, then you put it back down on the floor. So it's all ground-based, and it filled in all of those gaps that people were missing. So I think it's fantastic. Definitely important to do things from a standing position from time to time. Tyler, hey Matt, do you have any insight on getting enough done in a day? I've been feeling like there just isn't enough time in a 24-hour day to pursue all the interests I have along with fitness. Hey man, I know exactly what you're talking about. So part of that comes from, again, having this fundamental approach and recognizing what you need to do with each thing. Because a lot of times we spend a lot of time preparing and a lot of time just wasting time and energy and stuff, getting ready to do things or cooling down after stuff, or, okay, this meeting is over. Let me get a coffee break. Let me deconstruct this. Okay. Every time we're switching tasks, it eats up more time. So one is look to see if there's any activities you can just simply do without. See if you can delegate it at work. See if you can just put it to a different time. There's nothing wrong with actually putting stuff off. I have this all the time happen with clients where they're like, I don't want to do it today. Is it okay if I do this workout tomorrow? Yep, fantastic, great idea. Because a lot of times if you can put it off and say, no, I can do this better tomorrow at this time rather than now, then you are better putting it off. So change around your schedule that way. Get rid of things that just don't need to be there, that are just kind of eating up time. I'm a big fan of making just a quick little to-do list. And I'm not talking like on your phone or something like that. I have a whiteboard. So on the weekends, like Friday night, I'll just write out things that I just want to make sure I'm done, I can do. And it just kind of keeps me on task, because sometimes I'll kill an hour and a half just surfing the net or doing whatever, right? An hour and a half is gone. And like, oh, that's right. I've got to go pick that thing up over at the store, right? And it's like, oh, I just remembered that. But when you have a to-do list, you're like, okay, that's done. What's next? And this is a tip I learned from my good buddy, Nikki. I mean, she is the master of getting stuff done quick in the day. And that's one of the things. I mean, we would wake up Saturday morning, we're like, go. And we would hit it. We went to Vegas one time, and she was like, we got 3 days. We're doing Vegas. And we were like, you can't do Vegas in 3 days. She's like, we'll do it in 48 hours. And we did it. We did most of everything we wanted to do in 48 hours. We did the whole strip in 48 hours. And it wasn't rushed at all, but we had a plan. We got it all rather than just winging it, which is probably the best way to save a lot of time, is have some sort of a plan of how you're attacking each day. Next question. All right. Hey, Matt, how should someone approach training after doing rehab because of injury? Well, your rehab is training. So one thing you want to do is consult with your physical therapists or your doctors and say, okay, I want to get back into training. This is what I'm doing. What do you recommend as my next steps? And they'll probably just direct you right away and say, okay, you were doing this exercise this way. Now you do it this way. Now you can take this exercise. You don't need to do that anymore. Now you do this sort of thing. And they'll give you your next steps because they know your injury. They know your plan for rehab. They know exactly what you should and should not be doing, and start small. A lot of times when people are coming back from injuries and stuff like that, they feel like I got to catch up, like I've got to rush, and they push themselves too hard and they re-injure themselves. Gentle, nice and easy does it, right? Listen to your body. When it's ready to be pushed, it'll let you know, but don't feel like you have to force it. All right, next questions. Awesome. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming on. Hey, Matt, how do you brace your core? I pull my stomach in and squeeze my core, but what is this about pushing my belly out? And then I feel I lose my brace. Here's the way to think about it. Like your core, a lot of times we think of the abs like on the front side of the body. That's part of it, but that's actually a very small part of your core musculature. You've got your internal obliques, external obliques. You've got your the corset muscle. God, I'm blanking on the name. That's driving me crazy. Basically, it wraps around your entire core. Like it goes from your spine all the way around. Oh, it's going to wake me up at 3 a.m. and I'm going to have it. Oh, boy, it's driving me crazy. Someone else help me out here. But anyway, the best way to learn bracing that I give people is I have them lay on the floor and I put a heavy-ass kettlebell on their belly. And immediately they got to go, and that's what you do. Another thing you can do is just hit yourself in the stomach. Not too hard, naturally, but you just bang, bang, bang a couple of times. Sometimes you'll see, like on YouTube videos, these guys doing like leg raises or pull-ups and stuff, and the guy's like punching them in the stomach and the abs. It kind of looks like this macho, egotistical, bro sciencey thing, but that's exactly what they're doing. Is you hit yourself in the belly, you have to brace, and that's the immediate way that you can brace. Don't think suck in, brace out, kind of all this sort of thing. Just boom, give yourself a few good hits. That's bracing, and now you know what it is, and you'll be all ready to rock and roll. Another one from Mike G. Hey, Matt, finding that focusing on adding reps is problematic. Absolutely. It may be going a little on the excessive side of things. It ends up being a game of how much energy/willpower do I have today? Focusing on rep quality, if they go up, that's a bonus. Absolutely, Mike. Thank you for sharing your experience with us. That's exactly what I recommend to a lot of folks. In fact, a lot of my personal own training is I almost never go after more reps. I almost never go after lifting more weight. That's almost never the goal, because I'm trying to improve the quality, keep things tight, getting things as well as possible. And as you said, like as that gets better, the reps can go up, in which case I don't add reps. I'm like, oh, that 12 is easier than before. Do I do 13? No, I go with a harder technique, or I'll go with more resistance to keep myself within that range. So I'm always going for ranges of like 5 to 6 or 10 to 15 in the finisher phase. And I'm always in the same rep range. Like a lot of times, it's a cheeky reply, but some people are like, can you do 100 push-ups? I'm like, God, no, why would I ever do push-ups that are that easy? Like there's no way why would I do that? Unless it was a contest, like give you $100 for 100 push-ups. Great. Okay. But why would I do it that easy? I want to make it hard. I want to stay challenged. So very good perspective there, Mike, for sure. Yes, Mike G, thank you so much. Transversi abdominis, thank you. Good, now I can sleep tonight. Of course, that is the name of what I call the corset muscle. If you ever want to engage that transversi abdominis, yes, the tapping in your belly, putting the kettlebell on you is a good way to go about it. Another way to work the transversi abdominis specifically, and this is kind of a weird way, but it works, is take like a rope or a strap from like suspension trainer or something like that, and you wrap it around yourself so it's crossed over in front of your belly. You pull it and basically suck everything in as if you're trying to not touch that string. And that's how you can engage and contract transversi abdominis specifically. It doesn't do that much for your core strength or anything. It's just kind of a neat way to make sure that muscle's alive and working and engaging, but it's kind of a neat isometric for that muscle specifically. All right. Don Trey in the house once again. How's it going, man? What do I do when I master unilateral exercises without adding weights? Good luck with that. Let me know if you ever do that, because I don't know anybody who ever has. But that's a question that I often get a lot of times when people are like, so once I get to the top level, where do I go from there? Don't worry about it. Worry about it when you get there. But once you get there, you'll see what's in front of you. Progression is always like walking in fog. You can only see what you need to do for the next few steps ahead of you. If you asked, what do I do once I get to 100 miles away? It's like, we're not there yet. It could be a completely different landscape by the time we get there. So don't worry about it. But yeah, I mean, you can add weight to any sort of unilateral exercise. But to put it into perspective, like I've been doing pistol squats for years, I could do pistol squats, not easily, like crazy, but I'm still like, okay, there's always something to work on. More hip mobility, more strength, more stability. Okay, that was a little, you'll always have something to work on. And that's one of the marks of a true master in something. No matter how good they get, they've always got something they know to work on. But you only know what those are once you get to that level. You won't be able to, if you ask a white belt, what do you work on when you're a black belt? I don't know, but you ask a black belt, what do you work on now? And they'll give you a laundry list, or at least they should certainly have a good list for you. All right, a couple more here real quick. Julian Harris, good to have you on here, man. Thank you so much for coming on. Oh, my battery is dying on my Mac. This may be quicker than I think. Hey, Matt, can calisthenics carry over to weight training, or is weight training and a specific skill? And how do you feel about animal flow and MoveNat? Animal flow, fantastic, wonderful. Same thing with MoveNat, great for filling in those cracks. Yes, there is strength carryover, absolutely. And my experience, and with talking to people, has generally been that bodyweight training carries over to weights better than weights carries over to bodyweight training. It's just my observation and stuff. Like if you can do pistol squats, your back squat's gonna go up. But you could do back squats all day long, but your pistol squat can still suck. So it tends to be that way. I know there's exceptions to that. Some people I'm sure are like, that never happened to me, but it tends to be that way. So calisthenics does carry over to weights, but again, you're right. Everything is specific. Adaptation is always specific. So if you came to me and said, I need to be able to deadlift 2.5 times my body weight, what are you doing deadlifts? We've got to do deadlifts. If you want to really maximize something, you've got to focus on that thing to begin with. All right, one more question. Last one. Hopefully my battery doesn't die. Hey, Matt, is lateral chain training necessary in a program like combat conditioning? I would say not entirely necessary, but it's definitely good to have in there because everything in your lateral chain gets worked with other exercises. Your hips, your hamstrings, lateral quads and hamstrings, your obliques, your lats, all that sort of thing. But chains are not necessarily specific muscles. It's the coordination of those muscles to all work in a cohesive way. So your muscles are already working, they're already getting stronger, but getting them to link up in a coordinated way, I would say, is very important. But it doesn't take much to work the lateral chain. Get some side planks, do some of the human flag exercise and convict conditioning too. I'll take care of you right as rain. All right, everybody, I will pull this off here as my battery is dying. My apologies, I should have plugged this sucker in, but thank you again, everyone, for coming on. I really do sincerely appreciate it. Again, if you want to show some support, check out the links down below to NOSC suspension setups, all my books on Amazon as well. And if you're watching this on YouTube, there's also the RDP shirts down there. I got some new designs coming out fairly soon as well. Thank you so much, everybody. And I will see you again next week, where I'll be talking a little bit more on what are some of those specific objectives that we have that we can really dial in and make our training and our eating a hell of a lot more efficient and more effective without having to go into these swings of excess or deprivation. So that's coming up for next week. I will talk to you then, 7 o'clock Denver Standard Time here. I hope you have a great week. Till then, be fit and live free.